Well, considering nothing was done with this franchise for so long, you can say that this movie really rescued it. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about a newer Disney Plus release, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. Before we begin, let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this movie were, if you already saw it, or if you were planning on seeing it, and make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you like these reviews, as it helps me out immensely by getting my content out there. And if you're new here, I hope you consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with more movie-related content like Disney Plus reviews on a near daily basis. But let's not waste any more time and let's talk about Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. This sees chipmunks, Chip and Dale, voiced by John Mulaney and Andy Samberg, living very different lives 30 years after their popular television show ended. However, when a cast member from the original series mysteriously disappears, the pair must reunite to save their friend. This is directed by Akiva Schaffer and it hit Disney Plus in May. Now, this was a movie that I had pretty high on my radar, though I was surprised to see people didn't exactly have the highest expectations for it going in. What I always found ironic for myself is that while a lot of people around my age know the Disney Channel for its original movies and its more tween-oriented shows, I stopped watching it around the time a lot of those things were taking off. My main experience with the Disney Channel was when I watched the Disney Afternoon, with shows like Tailspin, DuckTales, Darkwing Duck, and more, and Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers was one of my favorites from that lineup. So, because I do hold a lot of nostalgia for the show, that had me excited for a revival movie, as I knew it had the potential to be the light-hearted, big blockbuster adventure that we could all use, especially given how the last few years have been. And I was especially excited when I heard that it was going to be brought to us by The Lonely Island, and that John Mulaney and Andy Samberg were voicing the characters, as I think The Lonely Island is very funny, and I always get a kick out of their music and film projects. But I was not expecting what I saw when the first trailer for this dropped, which promised us a Who Framed Roger Rabbit-style comedy with Chip and Dale, along with the rest of the Disney crew, being actors who put on their chipmunk voices as part of their characters. On top of the fact that you could see cameos from so many different characters all across all major film studios, and it looked like it was going to poke fun at the animation industry as a whole, giving it the feel that it was going to be pretty epic in scale. I love a good meta comedy, and I know there was so much material they had to work with since the days of Roger Rabbit to poke fun at in the animation medium, so this had me even more hyped than I already was. And this pretty much lived up to it. This was an absolute blast and easily one of the best movies to hit Disney Plus as an original film. In fact, it's actually a shame Disney didn't release this in theaters. I mean, it's not the biggest deal to me at the end of the day, as I don't get too worked up over whether a movie's released in theaters or streaming these days, but still, this was the sort of movie that I think would have been a blast to see with the crowd. So, as expected, one of the film's biggest strengths was its cast. Both John Mulaney and Andy Samberg are great together as Chip and Dale, and they bring a lot of heart to these characters who, for the longest time, were just known for getting into mischief. It's definitely a little jarring at first to hear something besides their normal high-pitched voices, as that's how they've been characterized for decades, but you get over it pretty quickly, with Mulaney and Samberg bringing a lot of laughs thanks to their rock-solid chemistry. And in the supporting cast, you have a slew of big names popping up, from J.K. Simmons, Seth Rogen, Will Arnett, Keegan-Michael Key, and taking over the roles from the original Chip 'n Dale show, you have Dennis Haysbert as Zipper and Eric Bana as Monterey Jack. But you also have plenty of voice actors from their respective original properties returning as well. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, as we'd be here all day, but the two most notable ones are Tress MacNeille as Rescue Rangers co-star Gadget, and who also briefly reprises her role as Chip's chipmunk voice, along with longtime Disney voice actor Jim Cummings, reprising a number of his classic roles in numerous cameos. And while with a movie of this size, a lot of these supporting parts are mostly nothing more than glorified cameos, everyone was still great with what they had to work with. Now, while the film is a mix of animation and live action, set all in the real world, the only human character who has any sort of prominent role is Kiki Lane as a rookie LAPD officer who helps J.K. Simmons, Captain Putty, and who's a longtime Rescue Rangers fan. And of everyone, I'd say she had the third most prominent role. Though while I do like Kiki Lane and she does a nice job of rolling with just how weird and out there this can sometimes be, the writing for her character does suffer a little bit from the same issues that generally plagues a number of these more recent live-action animation hybrids, where the live-action characters feel either thinly written or are just packed with cliched, uninteresting dialogue. And while I don't think her dialogue was god-awful or anything, Her character is played the most straight-faced and is meant to help give some sense of emotional weight, especially in expressing her love for the original show. And while I think the film does a nice enough job at paying tribute to the original Rescue Rangers through all of its references and Easter eggs, there really isn't so much of an arc for her outside of just being there as support. And for the third most prominent character, I would have liked to have seen just a little more, especially because Kiki Lane is a great actress. And to go back to that note about paying tribute to the original Rescue Rangers, I will say that if you're worried about watching this and being lost because you never saw the original show, don't worry, as it's really not needed. While characters mention specific episodes all throughout the film, as they're used to help Chip and Dale solve the current case on their hands, they'll spell out anything important from said episode so you're not left in the dark. And generally, because this is more of a film poking fun at the animation industry as a whole, that's where most of the jokes and references are anyway. Now, if you know anything about the original show, that's definitely a bonus, considering how they also reference all the obscure merchandising from the time, and they'll make some of these references to specific scenes, but it's not required viewing. It's more of an added bonus if you saw it or retained any knowledge of it. And then getting down to the film's overall sense of humor and a lot of its meta jokes, I thought those were mostly really well done. While this is still a film that's meant for family entertainment, the one thing that really impressed me, which I was able to tell right from the trailer, is how much the Lonely Island's quirky and sometimes in-your-face sense of humor made its way into the movie. While the Disney brand usually closely adheres to certain formulas and types of jokes that mostly have a broad accessibility to it, it was refreshing to see them branch out a little more here and crack a few more risque jokes that they're known for. Now, I'm not going to oversell this as it being this very edgy, borderline adult-oriented movie. Like, this is something that's supposed to appeal to all audiences, though, truth to be told, I think a lot of the meta humor is going to go right over younger audiences' heads. But either way, you can definitely feel the Lonely Island's influence all throughout this, and I'd argue this is just as much of a Lonely Island movie as it is a Disney movie. Sometimes those styles do conflict a little here and there, but they go together much better than I thought they would. And it was very refreshing, especially for a Disney Plus original. Not that I dislike everything we've gotten from Disney lately or everything that's been put on Disney Plus lately, but they needed something a little fresh to change up the formula. Like, how often do you get one of these movies that combines whimsical children's characters with a hard-boiled detective drama? Not since Who Framed Roger Rabbit, I'll say. And speaking of Roger Rabbit, who does pop up in a very quick cameo here, as I mentioned, similar to the movie, you get a slew of cameos from characters all throughout the animation world, not just Disney. The film pokes fun at all the changing trends in the animation medium, from the shift to CGI, the weird 2000s photorealistic animation trend, the bootleg versions of classic properties, and so on. If you're a big fan of animation, there are so many great cameos, Easter eggs, and references that will just put a big smile on your face. And it never felt mean-spirited in the way it riffed on something that wasn't so well received, or if Disney was punching down at any of their competitors. It was all in good fun. And it's one of those films where you have to go back and try to catch what you miss, because this is loaded to the brim with so many little references, and it didn't feel soulless in the way in which it utilized all the cameos. Some are obviously just there in the background in a blink and you miss it part with no lines, but any character who they actually give the spotlight to, even if for just a few seconds, it felt fun and there was a clever joke thrown in there for them. Once again, I'm not going to get into every single one of them as we'll just be here all day, but all I'll say is, obviously, the best one by far was Tim Robinson as Ugly Sonic, the original version of the character that we almost got for the live-action movie in 2020. And I know some people were avoiding talking about this in their reviews, but that cameo made its rounds throughout the internet the second the movie hit. And considering how late I'm getting to this review, I'm sure you probably know about it by now. It's not a big role, but I loved it. One, just for the way in which the film poked fun at the whole Sonic debacle, and two, because I'm a big fan of Tim Robinson and his show I Think You Should Leave. And the way he played Ugly Sonic here, my mind instantly went to that show. Which, if you haven't seen I Think You Should Leave, get on that, because it's fantastic. But that just put a big smile on my face. As for criticisms beyond what I already mentioned, going back to something that I feel goes hand in hand with my notes surrounding the writing for Kiki Lane's character, I do think that the mystery detective side of things does feel like it left much to be desired. It's certainly not terrible, but there were times I just didn't feel the emotional weight of the story, especially because this mystery involves rescuing a fellow former cast member, that being Monterey Jack, who was a close friend to Chip and Dale. And while, as I said, I liked Eric Bana as this character, they really didn't do much with him at the end of the day. He gets a few good lines in the brief time we see him, but he felt more just like a plot device than anything, and there was no sense of satisfaction to the way they bring his part of the story full circle. He felt like he was just there. And even when we see Chip and Dale reunite with Zipper and Gadget later on, it was a fun moment, and it's done in a way to keep the story moving. But again, part of their brief time on screen was mainly for the purpose of a gag, and there really wasn't quite that emotional satisfaction of seeing the whole Rescue Rangers crew together, despite these also being characters from the original show. Again, I know this isn't something that's only meant to be for those who saw the original show, but they still felt underutilized. I get that the main thing driving a lot of this movie was the relationship between Chip and Dale, as well as the many tributes and references to the animation medium as a whole, and while that was great and it made for a very entertaining movie, I do feel that the actual story can feel a little like an afterthought as the result, and I just wished that was a little better. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers is an absolute blast and easily one of the better Disney Plus originals. While the detective side of things was a little so-so, it still had plenty of heart and charm to it, especially thanks to its frequent meta gags and many tributes to the art of animation. The fact that the Lonely Island managed to inject a lot of their influence works greatly to the movie's advantage, giving us a Disney film that, despite the comparisons it'll draw to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, feels fresh and unique. I had a great time with it, and even if you're not the biggest Disney fan, I think you should give this a shot. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers gets an 8.5 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Is this one of your new favorite Disney Plus movies, and should any other shows from the Disney afternoon also get a reboot like this? Let me know in the comments below so we can discuss. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching everyone, and keep having fun with film.